Dawn rose over Saint-Pierre like it always had, soft, gold, forgiving. The sea glittered, the church bell sang, and for a moment, the world felt untouchable. Children ran barefoot across cobblestones. A mother lifted her baby to the sun, and laughter floated between the bright white walls of a city that believed it was safe. On a high balcony, Governor Montet stirred his coffee, watching the volcano wrapped in morning light. "She's calm today," he said. His wife didn't answer. Her eyes stayed on the thin smoke climbing the sky like a ghost learning to breathe. In a small house near the harbor, Lucian wrote a letter to her fiancé in Paris. "The air feels strange," she smiled, "but the light is beautiful." She sealed it with a trembling hand, never knowing it would never be read. Far below, in a dark stone cell, a prisoner named Cyparis pressed his ear to the wall. The ground hummed like something alive. He whispered, "Not thunder." The camera rises, rooftops glowing, waves sparkling, the mountain exhaling a quiet plume. Everything perfect. Too perfect. And the voice lowers to a breath. By noon, this paradise would no longer exist. Morning settled gently over Saint-Pierre, the kind of morning that made people believe in forever. Fishermen hauled in silver nets that flashed in the sun. A boy chased a stray chicken down a narrow alley. On every corner, someone waved, laughed, or called a name they loved. Life was simple here, and that simplicity felt sacred. In the marketplace, Lucian haggled for mangoes, the vendor teasing, "You'll ruin me with that smile." She laughed, brushed ash from her sleeve, not even noticing. Nearby, Father Renée adjusted the church candles, the scent of wax and ocean salt blending in the air. He paused, glancing toward the mountain, then crossed himself without knowing why. At the governor's mansion, Montet dictated a letter, his voice steady, his pride louder than his caution. "There is no danger," he said to his aide. "Tell Paris the people are safe." He looked out the window, watching children play beneath a sky too clear to be real. Down by the docks, an old man tuned his violin. Notes drifted through the harbor like prayers carried by wind. Couples danced in the square, shop doors creaked open, a radio crackled with news from the mainland. For a moment, the city was alive with rhythm, footsteps, laughter, ocean waves keeping time. The camera glides through the crowd, faces glowing in sunlight, every frame filled with warmth and faith. And over it all, the narrator breathes softly. They thought they understood the world that morning. But the world had already begun to change. By late afternoon, the light began to change. The air turned heavier, like someone had placed a hand over the city's chest. People noticed it, but no one said a word. A thin layer of ash started to fall, soft as dust, settling on rooftops, on hair, on fruit stands at the market. Children laughed, calling it snow, the first Saint-Pierre had ever seen. In her small kitchen, Lucian tried to bake bread, but the dough wouldn't rise. She leaned out the window, catching a flake on her finger. It melted into gray. Somewhere in the distance, the mountain let out a low, guttural sigh, deep enough to rattle cups on the shelf. She froze, then whispered, "Just thunder." At the church, Father Renée stared at the statue of Mary. The candles flickered without wind. Behind him, the old bell trembled on its own, a faint metallic hum filling the silence. He reached up, touched it gently, and the sound stopped, like the breath of something waiting. The governor's office smelled of tobacco and denial. Montet's aide placed a trembling hand on a telegram from the northern villages, reports of ash, of fire falling from the sky. "Rumors," the governor said. "Panic kills faster than lava." His pen scratched the page, steady and proud. Down in the prison, Cyparis pressed his palms against the wall. The stone felt warmer tonight. Drops of water sizzled where they touched the floor. He closed his eyes, listening to the rumble under his feet, steady, patient, like a heartbeat counting down. And over these sounds, the voice returns, softer now, almost regretful. The louder the earth tried to speak, the harder they tried not to listen. At 7:59 a.m., the mountain opened its mouth. At first, it was only light, a blinding, impossible white that tore through the morning mist and froze the air in place. Then came the sound, a roar so vast it seemed to come from the bones of the earth itself. It was not thunder, not explosion, but something older, deeper, as if the planet had decided to speak again after centuries of silence. Saint-Pierre awoke in that instant, too late. Windows shattered. The sky turned black and gold. Birds caught mid-flight fell like stones. Horses reared and collapsed before their shadows could catch them. Within seconds, streets filled not with people but with flame, a moving wall of ash and gas racing faster than the wind. On his balcony, Governor Louis Montet reached for his teacup as the horizon erupted. The cup never reached his lips. Steam replaced air. His wife screamed, or tried to, before the sound itself burned away. The house exploded inward, walls curling, glass liquefying, as the governor disappeared into the brightness he could not command. In the marketplace, Lucian clutched her letter, ink smudged, addressed to a man already lost at sea. She ran through streets that no longer existed, her dress trailing sparks, her lungs filling with fire. The cobblestones rippled beneath her, melting into rivers of black. She turned once, saw the church tower collapsing, the bell twisting in its frame, and kept running toward a sky that was no longer blue. Inside that church, Father Renée knelt before the altar. His words broke apart in the heat, prayers turned to vapor before leaving his throat. The stained glass burst outward, shards of color suspended in a flash of white so pure it erased even light itself. Below the city, in his cell, the prisoner Cyparis pressed his body against the wet stone wall. His chains glowed red. The iron door sealed him from the storm, trapping him with the only thing left alive: breath. Above him, the city screamed and fell silent, layer by layer. He heard roofs collapsing, voices fading into wind, and then the world became one sound pressure. Down in the harbor, the sea boiled. Ships burst into flame where they floated, their masts snapping like matchsticks. A tidal wave of molten air rolled through the streets, stripping paint from metal, flesh from bone, memory from matter. The sky turned to smoke. Time ended. Then quiet, no screams, no footsteps, only the hiss of a dying planet exhaling what it had buried too long. A single bell, warped by heat, swung once in the ruins of Saint-Pierre. It struck no note, only air, then fell into the ash. The narrator's voice returns, trembling through the silence. It took 2 minutes. 30,000 lives. And the mountain never raised its voice. The screen fades to white. Ash falls gently, softly, like snow on a city that has forgotten its own name. The fire passed as quickly as it came, and what followed was worse. Saint-Pierre no longer existed, only the ghost of a city carved in ash. The streets were rivers of gray glass, the buildings hollow shells that still smoked from within. The sea, once bright and blue, lay dark as ink, flat, motionless, as if mourning. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Beneath the ruins, in a cell buried under tons of molten stone, Cyparis stirred. His skin cracked with every movement, his throat burned as he gasped for air thick with dust and heat. He called out, once, then again, and heard nothing but the trembling echo of his own fear. The stone wall against his back was warm, almost alive, pulsing faintly with the memory of the eruption. Above him, something shifted. A beam collapsed with a groan, scattering ash that glittered like falling stars in the dimness. He pressed his face against the wet floor and waited for the ceiling to crush him, but death did not come. Only silence, vast and endless. Hours passed, or maybe days. Hunger turned to numbness, time dissolved. When he finally pushed open what was left of the door, sunlight stabbed through the dust, pale and unreal. The city outside was still, bodies and walls fused together, gestures preserved mid-motion, as if the world had stopped to inhale and never exhaled again. He walked barefoot through the ruin, every step cracking the crusted ash. Where the church once stood, he found the bell half sunk and blistered with heat. He reached out. It shuddered under his fingers, gave a single trembling note, faint, mournful, alive for a heartbeat. The voice returns, trembling, hollow with awe and grief. The fire was loud. But the silence was unbearable. Days turned into weeks before help arrived. When rescuers reached Saint-Pierre, they found no city, only an echo carved in ash. Streets were gone, replaced by gray waves of dust that shimmered under the sun. The air smelled of stone and smoke. 30,000 lives had vanished, leaving only outlines on walls, hands frozen in gestures, whispers turned to dust still warm to the touch. And in the center of it all, they found one man breathing. Cyparis, burned, broken, but alive. His skin was cracked like the earth itself, his eyes wide with something beyond fear. He became a living relic, the only witness to a city's last heartbeat. To anyone who asked, he spoke of the roar that had no echo, of the light that devoured sound. But years later, as the world moved on, doubt crept in. Some said no one could live through that. He would simply smile, roll up his sleeve, and show the scars that smoked when rain touched them, a map of survival drawn by fire. He traveled with circuses, called the man who lived through fire. Crowds gathered to stare at the miracle of endurance, the proof that a human could outlast even the wrath of a mountain. Yet when the tents emptied and the applause faded, he sat in silence, the same silence that had followed the eruption, the one no music could fill. 100 years later, tourists walk where fire once walked. They take photos, read plaques, buy postcards marked souvenir to remember. But memory, like ash, drifts easily. The wind still carries faint traces down from the mountain, soft as breath, cold as centuries. The camera rises. The volcano glows beneath a quiet sunset, pretending to sleep. The voice returns, calm and knowing. It wasn't the fire that took them. It was certainty, the kind that blinds us before the ash. Then, a whisper fading into the wind, the mountain never hated them. It just wanted to be heard. Fade to white. A violin holds one trembling note. Then silence.